Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to hashtag Ask Susanna. This week, we're covering a key contract term. Hold on one second. I want to make sure I'm capturing any questions that come up. And forgive me, I'd love, if you're watching this, by the way, I'd love your feedback. I use StreamYard because it's a little higher quality for broadcasts like this than Zoom. We all love Zoom. But I'm also open to doing these live sessions on Zoom so that you can be on screen with me and we can have discussion and live Q&A. So as you go through your questions later, I'm going to ask you for your feedback, whether you would prefer that or not. But today we're going to start with a basic definition with a term that is often misunderstood and confusing with both buyers and sellers, and that is called a seller's assist. As an aside, some realtors work specifically only with sellers or with buyers, and that's completely valid business model. I respect that. Personally, I have chosen throughout the years, and I'm going to continue to work with both. Some years I'm more heavily focused on sellers, and some I'm about 50-50 with buyers and sellers. The reason to me it's important is anytime you negotiate, we study Chris Voss or any other, negotiation experts, it's important to understand as much as you can the motivation of the other party. We'll want to try to understand their negotiation style. Are there somebody that like to chip away, start high, start low, and chip away? Or are they going to get offended by that? And also, what's their key concern? Because quite often, if you write an offer, for instance, and just throw it into the dark, we might think it's a good offer, but it may not hit the key points for that seller, for instance. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not, like I'm working with buyers, to get your win, we want to manipulate the terms of the contract that win for you, but are also seen as attractive to the seller. Because remember, the win is that accepted offer and getting that home, which means on some level, it has to be attractive to the other party, right? I say in that order because that's how offers generally start, although we'll talk another day about offers and reverse offers. But generally, the buyer submits the offer, the seller reviews and either counters, rejects, or accepts. And then you have a contract, a signed, executed contract. Now, seller's assist is used pretty extensively in Philadelphia City and County. When I moved here from Hawaii, it was a new concept for me. We did not use a seller's assist, not in that terminology, although my networking with other agents across the country, it is used generally in other states. The reason I think has been more heavily used in Philadelphia. Our transfer taxes in the county of Philadelphia are 2 to 4 times as high as the surrounding counties, which makes your closing costs higher. And then you're talking about not only a hardship, but managing cash out of pocket on your home sale, which is why it's important to put your financial strategy together early with your trusted professionals. So let's get to the nuts and bolts of what is a seller's assist. The simplest way for me to try to describe it is the seller is assisting the buyer's ability to mortgage some of their closing costs. And this is a little hard for some of my sellers to understand. They feel like they're paying for the buyer's closing costs. And that's not the case. There is a way to negotiate that. But what happens is the mortgage is based on the contract price. Let's just keep numbers really simple. Let's say the contract is $500,000 and the mortgage has to appraise at $500,000. Now the buyer may be putting 20% down, 10% down, 5% down, or they may have a doctor loan or a VA loan and putting nothing down. The closing costs for a buyer are usually higher than for a seller, except for, well, no, that's not true because the seller has the commission, which is very high. But in terms of the other closing costs for buyer, you have your title insurance, which is set by the price of the property. And generally, all the fees can be a little bit different. It is regulated, so you'll find those are standard. You'll have, if you're using, this is all relative to buying with a mortgage. Seller's assist doesn't really apply for a cash transaction, but you're going to have your loan origination fees. You're going to have your lending fees. You're going to have that transfer tax and the title insurance, which the seller doesn't pay at closing. Of course, they paid for it when they bought the property. Your title insurance fee is, again, it's regulated by the price of the property. Those add up. So, when you're doing your financial plans and the calculators, and this is what I fine tune with my clients, the mortgage calculator, sometimes they won't cover for your closing costs all those nuances, which can vary from county to county. So a seller's assist can help in that. Let's go back to the $500,000 purchase price. So this isn't just about buyers who can't afford to pay for the closing costs. It's about strategies with cash. How much do you want to leverage? How much do you want to stay liquid? Of that $500,000, you have your closing costs. Let's say we ask for a $5,000 seller's assist. That means your mortgage is going to be based and funded at the $500,000, assuming it appraises. At settlement on your closing sheet, the seller agrees to credit back to your side $5,000 of the proceeds from the mortgage, okay, of the proceeds from the sale of the home. Come back on your side of the balance sheet, which help offset debits and credits. It's like a plus and minus. That becomes, incoming money to you from the seller's proceeds to help offset the outgoing money of your closing costs. Now, how does this impact the seller? Really, technically, it only does is they're paying a transfer tax. This happens rarely, but the only additional cost to them of that $5,000 that they're not receiving would be that they're paying a transfer tax on $500,000, not $495,000. So that can be negotiated as well, and you can make it more attractive in that way. Sellers quite often have a very hard time understanding that it's really not truly coming out of their pocket. They're simply assisting the buyer in using leverage towards part of their closing costs. What sensitivity we have to have is that offer on paper that says $500,000 in this case is truly only an offer of $495,000 to the seller. So that's what matters in the initial negotiations, is the sensitivity to what the net price is to the seller, and whether that will be attractive or not. There are many ways around that. We can discuss that separately. One of the strategies I've done in the past where it's not attractive to the seller, in our example, is write an offer at $505,000 with a $5,000 seller's assist. In essence, giving the seller full price, but wrapping $5,000 of credit towards your closing costs into your mortgage. Don't get scared. It's completely straightforward and legal. It's just another strategy. Now, this is in a normal market. These are standard terms. I'm going to talk in a little bit about today's market and strategies for that, but I just want to make sure first that we're kind of covering the normal situations and how that works. One second. So that helps you as a buyer. It can be, putting the cash together for the down payment and the move and everything. A lot of times people feel stressed out about that. Now, it isn't, like I said, I had a financial plan. He was a savvy investment manager, by some years ago. I think it was 2014. The interest rates then we thought were really low, like 3.2. Now they're even lower. You can get a loan at 2.9. But at that time, the interest rates were low. And he said to me, why would I pull money out of an investment account that's making 8 or 9% if I can leverage at 3%? So he used a seller's assist to help reduce the hard cash out of pocket towards his closing costs as a financial strategy, because his money was making money at a greater rate than it would cost him to leverage. So it's completely valid strategy. Many other first-time home buyers may be strapped and just don't have the money. And so it's another way to reduce that huge bundle of cash, it can feel that way, needed to, buy your home. And this seller's assist can apply with, FHA, with 20% conventional. It's a mix and match with your down payment, how much you're putting down, and the other aspects of your closing cost. So let me summarize. I'm sorry, I think I had too much coffee this morning. So the important thing is there's going to be a reduction in the proceeds to the seller based on that seller's assist. So all parties have to look at that net number and understand whether that will work or not. You will be paying interest. In essence, you're borrowing, you're wrapping your closing costs into your mortgage. So those will be amortized over a 30-year mortgage. Now, usually the differential on your mortgage is minimal at most, so for a lot of people, especially when interest rates are low, it seems like a very smart strategy. Now let's go into the negotiations and how it can impact negotiations. I know I may be missing a couple things here, so I just want to take a break at the moment. Shoot questions below if you're watching on replay, and make sure that we have understandings of the basics of the concept for both buyer and seller, because now we're going to talk a little bit more about negotiations from both sides and how that plays in. Now, in today's market, I'm recording this on June 25th, 2021, and we had a huge spike like the rest of the country has, in February, March into April, with competing offers. So the question comes to mind, the market's still hot with competing offers. It's just not quite as hot. So that's why I cite February and March, but it is still can be a competing offer market. And in fact, whenever I'm writing an offer, no matter what the external market conditions are, I always assume there could be competition. And we can get into that in a moment. So please understand from a seller's perspective, a buyer writing an offer with a seller's assist may raise concerns for the seller. They may not be viewing it the way we want them to view it. And depending on who their agent is, how experienced they are, how adept they are at explaining this, it could be a hurdle that could be hard to overcome. I know on the selling side, the listing side, I've had to have those conversations with sellers as we receive offers. As I mentioned, I can hear the voice in my head. Why would I pay for the da-da-da? So we have to have those conversations. So your offer may not be perceived as strong as a competing offer without a seller's assist. That may not feel fair. I'm just telling you the truth. The assumption can be, or is that means you're not financially qualified. You need help with your closing costs. You don't have the closing costs, which probably is not true. So a piece, when we go through the negotiations and contracts, you may have seen one of my videos, we'll go over the contract pieces needed. This is partly where your buyer financial information is so important. It is your own personal financial statement, and you may have the cash in a 401k. You may have the cash in an investment account. And the fact that you can disclose that tied into your offer with the pre-approval is very important, so they can see, oh, that tells the story. They're well qualified. It's a great lender. They just choose to do this. It's important that the seller understands this is your choice, not necessarily a necessity. If it is a necessity, fine. We'll just make sure that we position it in a very positive way. So that is, on the negotiation side, that is a risk when you use the seller's disclosure. Honestly, you might be misunderstood. So it'll be important that we put your offer packet together in a very strong way. Another risk for buyers is your lender will have a limit. Depending on what type of loan you use, the limit might be 3%, it might be 6%, but you can never go over your actual closing costs, okay? So, you can't use closing costs to take cash out of the mortgage and take it home with you at settlement. It has to be at or below your closing cost number. one of the disadvantages of maxing out the maximum seller's assist at the time of making your offer is that it no longer leaves that as an option on the table when we're negotiating repairs and credits in the home inspection period. So it's something, again, that we'll strategize. It's not right or wrong. It's just to understand if we play that card to the maximum, then we can no longer use that. And it might be a good tool to resolve some issues in the home inspection. So typically, when I advise my clients, we like to not go for the maximum if possible, leave a little room so that if necessary, we can resolve some repair issues if we have to during home inspections by some additional seller's assist. So those are like the two critical things, is understand you might be misunderstood, and it may not be wise to max out on your seller's assist with your original offer. Leave a little something for the home inspection. And of course, everybody's different. Those are generalities, but these are things that are important to go over with your realtor that you've hired to represent you and discuss what makes best sense for you. Okay. From now, in a competing offer market, that's a tough one because you're going to be competing with cash offers. But again, we also have to be sensitive to appraisal. One of the challenges before this huge spike in the past few months, I could play with those numbers with the confidence that the property would appraise. For instance, in our example of 505, that would only work if the appraisal comes in at 505. So realistically, right now in the competing market offer, seller's assists are not received as well as they normally are. However, like I said, every situation is different. We want to review this as a possibility. And, this is part of my detective work when I'm going to make an offer, of connecting with a listing agent, finding out as much as I can about what the seller is looking for, aside from simply price. And, if we do need to present a seller's assist, then we'll do it in the most positive light possible so that your offer has a really good fighting chance. Okay. Now you, your lender, and I make a team, and we work those things through. I will not write an offer for you that your lender can't perform on, or that will be outside of your lending guidelines. So that's why, having these discussions up front with your team to understand what your financial sensitivities are, what is a win for you, what are the possibilities, and how we can navigate or move those pieces around. I think of a chessboard, or I always think in analogies, or sometimes if you're a music fan, you think of the recording studio, and when we're negotiating, it's like moving the soundboard piece, mixing a little more bass, or do we take out some treble? These are the moving pieces that constitute a winning offer for you. We have to approach each situation differently, always with the goal of your win at price and terms that are a win for your situation. So I know that's been kind of a 30,000 mile overview of a very important contract term, and we can feel free to click below to my calendar, book a one-on-one. We can go deep on any questions you have. If you're watching this on replay, please post your comments and questions below. I'll get you answers right away, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook. Be sure to subscribe and follow on Facebook. And let's keep the conversation going. Always looking for your input and feedback. I'll be live again next Friday at noon with Ask Susanna. Please take care and have a fabulous weekend and next week. Okay. Let me know what you want to talk about. Take care.